Howdy, everybody. We're back with another cast over. We're going back to Fata Morgana in a 5-game set between Veeq and Hamster. We'll see how many we bang out in this one video. Hamster, of course, was our grand finalist, summarily executed, of course, by Mystery Meat in Ascension number 6. But he's the newcomer with quite a lot of backing, I would say. So I'm very much interested in seeing how he develops. Veeq, on the other hand, obviously a big-time, long-time project contributor, as well as a map maker. He made Fata Morgana itself, and he's trying to practice up to see if he can survive the gauntlet and make it to the proper stage of Ascension number 7. Let's see what happens as we get into this game. We do indeed have Hamster off-racing as Protoss here. He is the beige Protoss. And Veeq is actually off-racing as Terran, the Midnight Green Terran. These games are a little bit on the older side. This might have actually been before Veeq decided to sign up to a tournament as Protoss. And as a result, you know, maybe he's just been practicing Terran, or maybe he was playing random or something like that. I don't recall any random notices there, but, you know, you never know what could have been happening there. Now, that being said, this is not a matchup that Veeq has practiced that much. It's not like Nablime, for example, who kind of has developed a sort of system. We saw that on games where he had his, I described them as diverse anchors, where he would basically go in and try his best to, you know, staff a Huracan there for anti-Legionnaire, a Maverick there because you can fit a Maverick, and then a Cyprian because that's where you're going to get most of your heavy hitters. Veeq, on the other hand, is going to go ahead and wait around for some minerals before he can drop a Fulcrum. Fulcrum first is a fairly standard play versus Protoss. Now, one of the things that I like to do is I send my first 2 workers that come out of the Ministry to Vespene, and then around the 38 gas mark or something like that, in that range of Vespene, I guess it would be 36 because you harvest in increments of 4. Around that point, I take 1 worker off and get minerals, because you saw there that Veeq was actually sitting there not really being able to harvest resources or not being able to actually drop his Fulcrum for a little bit. And he's getting tickled a little here. It is kind of annoying. This is what you should be doing as a Protoss player if you scout your opponent first. He has hit an interesting snag there where he tried to cancel the production and then like retasked it or something. So that resulted in the Mason sort of freezing in place. We do have to figure out how to fix that particular issue. And there's some fluffling happening. There's some kerfluffling. That's actually 5 HP worker. Ooh! Sniped and destroyed. Utterly devastated. On this side, we have a very, very defensively placed gateway with the Dracodon coming out, so Hamster, being relatively conservative, is reached out of his turtle shell and just bopped that worker. Absolutely slapped it. But there is a Vulture coming, and a Cyclops will be the follow-up. So that's not a bad idea if you're going to be playing defensively, if you can play around cliff advantage. One thing I can foresee as a bit of a difficult aspect of this map, sort of analyzing the layout, and I don't have the whole map in front of me here, so, you know, you got to take this with a pinch of salt, is that, you know, we already talked a little bit about the rocky ground, because one of the things that I was mentioning to Veeq is that it's going to be kind of hard for Terran to hold the bridge, as well as, you know, maybe even this area, because it's kind of cutting into where they would want to build some defensive structures. And you can see it a little bit more clearly here, because there's no fog of war, but, you know, that's the kind of thing, it's like, all right, it's kind of awkward there. And I don't know how they would hold this one, but this one is super wide, and you can't put any defenses here, right? And you don't have cliff advantage. And that's the other thing, too, is, like, for my money, I kind of look at this and I think to myself, ooh, slapped. The fact of the matter being that you can't actually... Whoa, dude, how did Hamster do that? What a crazy guy. He's so tantalizingly close to that lobotomy mine, but it's not going to happen. Yeah, one of the things that I'm kind of, you know, concerned about with this map for Terran is, like, there's a little bit of a divot here where they put their Ministry, and if this was opened up so they could stand here, then it wouldn't be as bad, but as it stands, you don't get cliff advantage coming into it, right? Now, this is an opportunity for Veeq to strike, because that Dracodon is going to have to just sit there and absolutely get bopped by all the Cyclops shots. It manages to exchange a few blows, but, you know, that's a fairly good pick. That's kind of the power of the lobotomy mine. However, obviously, we are seeing fairly standard, steady production. The Ministry is coming now a little bit late for Veeq compared to Hamster's Nexus, and he's adding a second gateway behind it. So he's actually not really gone for aggressive sort of, you know, micro, and he doesn't have a lot of units. So that's the kind of thing where, you know, at this point as the Terran, you kind of have to read this and say, I need to pressure. Like, my opponent has 2 Dracodons, and, you know, he's now getting a 3rd, but my opponent is going, like, pretty fast Nexus. And it doesn't look like Veeq is immediately aware of this, right? He picks off the Scribe with his Vulture, and that's pretty much the extent of it. So now both of our players have lost, you know, 2 workers each, I suppose, in the early stages of the game. The scout workers got annihilated, and Hamster sent a second scout worker out. And plus, obviously, the early frag. So this is pretty good. I mean, he's getting a bit of a scout off here, and Hamster was a little bit lax, so he's going to pick off yet another scribe. He is still behind a little bit, Veeq, because obviously this Nexus has been finished for a while now, and each worker is 15 seconds in CMBW, as opposed to 12 and a half in Starcraft 1. So when you're thinking about it from those perspectives, you obviously have more of an opportunity to catch back up later on in the game. But Hamster seems to be pretty good at his macro. He's actually queued a lot of scribes, which maybe you would argue, like, oh, one of your gateways is dark right now. If you cancel one of those scribes, you could do that. Some minor optimizations could definitely be had. And we do indeed have more vultures coming in the queue, as well as a second fulcrum. The star pad was made, and I was kind of expecting drop play or something, because he had like a neat amount of 4 Cyclops, which he could use for a drop. There is an embassy coming in the main, but there's actually nothing else there. The Wraith might be doing some information gathering, maybe from a safe distance so it doesn't get decloaked, and that would allow you to keep it, keep stum. You're not actually revealing that you have, in fact, made a star pad. But if the Anciel is going to be there for the classic Nablime Scout, then that will obviously be pretty apparent pretty quickly. Now this scribe is once again being sent across the map to scout. Hamster maintaining about a 4 worker advantage at this point, 3 to 4. And we do have some Vespene being harvested from Veeq in the main, but not in the natural. Anytime I see somebody harvesting from the Ridge in their main, but not the Geyser in their natural, that's a sure sign that they haven't maybe focused in on their macro, right? It's definitely leaving some room on the table here. And, Terran has a lot of tools to sustain with the Vestry units and to survive early shots from Burst with the Anciels. It definitely feels like there still some, in the current sort of format or the meta of what we've seen, it does kind of feel like Terrans do have a little bit more requirements of being efficient. There's pylons being left. This scribe is leaving droppings in every single base just so that he can, keep track of where his opponent has been and where they're trying to expand. Wraith is going to pick off a scribe and then fly straight forward into a Dracodon, but that does spot the third base being made. And this has to kind of be a go signal, right? There's actually not that many units over here. There's only the 7 Dracodons. And, this is once again a bit of an older game, so I think this might be the old walk cycle and everything. Yeah, a little bit different there. And now going up for his own third base. So Veeq is like sort of saying, hey, I'm all set. I don't need to take the fight to you. And this is another situation where, he's got all these vultures, but he never did a minefield. Like, if those mines were already there, he could have actually taken that fight and actually picked off a bunch of these Dracodons, or started to take that fight more advantageously, I guess we could say, if that's a word, right? Like, with advantage. But it looks like he's got double Anciel and a third one on the way. He's really gunning for a lot of Vespene for that purpose. And look at that. There's a witness here for the mines, but I've got an Anciel here to detect, so I can just pop it off. And there it goes. Even one of the mines laying one of these Dracodons to rest. And again, there's only the 6 Dracodons, 2 more coming, but this army can absolutely fight the Gateway army. Like, when you're on mech and you have just Fulcrums versus just Gateways, absolutely goes the Terran's way almost every single time. So, these Dracodons are not long for the world. The pylon will screw up the AI a little bit. Like, I always hate when people say AI when they're talking about the unit internals. But, the automatic targeting is going to get screwed up a little bit there. But there's double Goliath out now. That's going to be really good sustained damage if they can stay in the back line, avoid getting sniped. We have a second Warden going on in the natural for Hamster, and an Ancestral Archives halfway complete, which is a very high tier structure. Very expensive, but the Warden and, this stuff is just going to have to get canceled. I mean, the pylon's going to get nuked down. The workers are also going to get bopped. And just the splash damage from the Cyclops alone is going to be enough to pop this Warden if allowed to. And yeah, the Wardens are, the Dracodons are being warded backwards. And now some mines are being placed. This is really good play from Veeq to have the Vultures left over, with leftover mines, able to go ahead and pop those. And, trying to trip it, but where's the engagement? Veeq is sort of like A-moving, and so the Nexus is getting hit. But still, the slows, great opportunities for more shots to be had. Now, taking the high ground, the cliff advantage is going to allow Hamster to riposte this attack, but in the background of all of this, right, one of those pylons gets cleared, so now Veeq can go ahead and take his 1 o'clock position. 11 o'clock is taken out, so Hamster has nothing there. Adding more Fulcrums, but no tech up just yet, right? So as these mines continue to pop, they might provoke Veeq into an attack, but I think he thinks twice and realizes, well, actually, if I'm going to do that, I need more vultures. And right now I only have Goliaths, right? So he does have 4 Goliaths coming across the ramp. That's going to consolidate into a very powerful force, but there is an Uptecton more than halfway done. And I think even if, Veeq sticks around for a little bit, as soon as that racks off a shot, you have to kind of fall back. So third base being taken at 9 o'clock instead for Hamster. He's going to try to set that back up. But that was a very successful campaign. As Terran, you win in stages. You can sometimes win quickly, but like in one fell swoop sort of deal. But I feel like looking at this right now, this is a situation where you want to, just take it in stages, right? And that's the whole idea, is that you sustain. You've got the power to do that. I don't see a stockade. The Atlas is more than halfway done at least, but I don't see a stockade, so there's no vestry coming. So his army is going to get more and more bruised over time. Vulture wrapping around here, laying some mines. Those are going to get revealed. I don't think that the Uptecton has been seen, but there is a 1 kill on it. I don't know if Veeq is aware of it just yet. He's kind of clumping his units up, which leads me to believe that maybe he isn't aware of it. The Ancials could absolutely be scouting ahead for this. And so what is the reaction as soon as he sees the Uptecton? He should fall back. One of the Goliaths does go down to the sustained fire, and that is going to mean that the Dracodons are, the Dracodons are kind of streaming in a little bit out of sync with the rest of the army, but you do still want to split your forces a little bit here, because the Uptecton does have pretty wide splash radius. Now he's going to try to engage this with a bunch of vultures. Ancial's not really helpfully defending too much here, but you want to position them sort of more spread out than I think on one target per se, since the Dracodons are dealing a bunch of miscellaneous damage. And now he's kind of clumped up on the ramp. His Atlas is done, but no Sentinels are on the way, which would absolutely be, I think, compulsory. Instead, he has the quadruple Palladium going for Phalanxes. Those do outrange Uptectons when in siege mode, so absolutely a reasonable play. Third base being saturated by Hamster now that it's starting to come online. He's sent in 5 workers and added an engram for defense. And it's at this point where I think if I had to give Veeq some advice to be in this situation, although he's not going to be playing as Terran in the tournament, I don't think. By the way, you can still change your race if you signed up as one race and you want to swap over to another. But yeah, looking at it from this circumstance, right, he is going to get the artillery out. His tier 2 is a little bit delayed, but that's probably because of the heavy mech investment, and he did successfully push out the Protos's third base, right? So he punished the greed timing, you could say. He's now going to start to get entrenched. The thing here is that he wants to be able to still be active on the map, and right now Hamster is sort of soft containing him. There's not really any minefield down here. You only get 2 mines from the Vulture as it currently stands, so you do need to express a little bit more minerals in order to provide that kind of thing. And there's no front line for these Phalanxes, but here comes the rest. The Witness does end up getting bopped, and now an Uptecton is taking a lot of sustained damage. I think it might just fall. Yep, there you go. It pops. And, ooh, the second one pops as well. Great stuff coming out of the Phalanxes. That extended range really coming in handy. It looks like the Dracodons were trying to see what kind of picks they could get. But yeah, with quadruple Phalanx potential here, I think he didn't lose a single one. In fact, he has all of them. He's starting to repair with Masons. This would be an opportunity to go for some sort of healing. And yeah, exactly. The Wraiths coming out here just to get active on the map, just to see what's going on. I'm not sure that he managed to scout the 3 o'clock position there and see about that pylon, not that it really matters. He will note that the bottom left base is being taken, and this is kind of like a call from Hamster to say, all right, I'm going to keep adding bases. I'm going to keep adding, whatever I can add. I've got an Argosy coming. I've got double Ancestral Archives. I'm producing a lot of Uptectons and Dracodons, right? It's all Strider City. So you need to respond to me in terms of not just your composition, which you're doing with the Phalanxes, you need to respond with map activity. And this is where I would say, like, make 1 or 2 rounds of Vultures and just send them across. And, 2 rounds of Vultures will absolutely pick apart the Warden engram and then maybe be able to, like, skirt around the sides, right? Like, that's absolutely something that you can do. Looks like Veeq is going to take the slow and steady approach. He's continuously picking off the Witnesses, which are being a little bit mis-microed there, or not microed at all by a Hamster. And the leapfrogging forward, he's hemorrhaging a couple of Goliaths due to the Uptecton shots, but he is gaining ground. And this is really important because it means that for the Veeq side of the equation, as far as the Phalanxes are concerned, yeah, look at this. He's having to send the Wraiths over to secure 3 o'clock because he didn't see that until it was too late. But yeah, he's taking control, and it's mostly a ground army right now. Now, that being said, the Argosy is complete, and there is enough Vespene to go for a Didact. Is that going to be what Hamster does? I mean, this is another situation where I think you have the Wraiths, you have the tools, you can waypoint a unit into the base and just see what your opponent has. Just see what they're doing. What's going on exactly? more and more leapfrogging with the phalanxes. They do deploy a little bit faster than before, and the Anseal's trying to protect them. Some of them are very, very wounded at this point, so the phalanxes, that is. Looks like the pylons will be eventually taken care of, so now Hamster a little bit in the dark. He does have access to witnesses, but they just keep getting popped. 4 wraiths are on the way to maybe sow some more additional chaos, but the Obtecton count is actually still growing, and I would be a little bit worried about that if I were in Veeq's shoes. You know, I still haven't technically lost any phalanxes, but the Goliath count is dropping. I have a little bit bad pathing here because I forgot about my Masons. You know, I'm transferring a bunch from my 3rd to my 4th. That's all well and good. I'm adding some starports, which is actually pretty solid because, you know, the Solarian is almost out, so there will be opportunity for him to sort of stagger that out. But I only have 5 Goliaths, and they are relatively, well, there's a 6th one over there. They're relatively wounded, you know, they're not all super good. A lot of my units are getting stuck over here because of my Masons and my Sentinels. Definitely a critical issue that Veeq has not, he hasn't really looked at his rally point. He's just like, I thought I ordered more units. Where are they? We have some Archons frontlining. This is another case where the fact that there's not that many units to buffer for the phalanxes is where you want vultures in standard, you know, StarCraft 1 play versus Protoss anyway. The rates are, you know, causing some havoc over here, just adding more and more insult to injury. But, you know, Hamster doesn't want to necessarily send his units down there, or if he does, he wants to first clear out the middle. Oh, it looks like he is going to try to rally across, and yeah, a couple of the Goliaths are indeed being bopped. Now here comes another rally with a couple of additional Fulcrum units, but 2 Phalanxes have already gone down. A lot of Goliaths are hitting the deck as well, particularly versus the Obtectons, which are now sort of fighting at the extremities. And without that front line, especially without that anti-air, the Solarians will be more than capable. There are some rotaries coming in, but what we really would want to see here at this point is, instead of waiting for the rotaries, like, if you want to maintain this position, if you don't want the Solarian to just pick off all of your Phalanxes, just round out a couple of Gorgons. Zone them away with the Gorgons. He still has not corrected the middle. I think, has he figured it out yet? He keeps looking over here. I see his camera position, but he's not actually looking at the fact that his units are sort of just spinning out. Okay, now he sees the Idle Masons. Now maybe he can sort of correct the record, but he is aware of the Solarians. The Wraiths did eventually get bopped by that engram, which finished. The Witness went down there to make sure that they detected. But this base isn't actually being fully actuated by Hamster. There's still a lot of potential in there. And Veeq is now up to 2,000 mineral float. That could be so many additional vultures, or, you know, Ramses if you ended up going for mantles. Could absolutely be more things like that. Now, a second Solarian has arrived. This is I think this might be so far back that they might be pre-nerf. Yeah, they still have the 3 armor, and they still have the 5 armor on the Solarian itself. This is absolutely where, like, in theory, you would want a bunch of Sundogs. But it doesn't actually look like those structures are making anything. Instead, he sent some Phalanxes around downtown, and this is good. This is good play. He's lost his position in the middle, but at the very least, he's now forcing a reaction, right? Like, if you can't break me, and hopefully you can't, because I don't actually have that many units over here. He's adding some Watchdogs. There is a Seraph over here as well. But, like, if you can't break my position, then I'm going to deny this base. Like, I will very, very slowly chip away at this, and you have to respond to it with something. Some Zealots are going to come in there to clean it up. So Hamster's actually kind of playing too well in that sense. And what? Veeq just GG's out in this position. He had so much money. Hamster also had so much money. I don't know what happened there, but Veeq decided he just couldn't withstand it. I think he was psychologically traumatized purely by the the presence of the Solarians or something. I'm not sure what was going on there, because that definitely felt like he was in a better spot, especially with all the money that he had. So who knows what happens there, but Hamster will take the game, and we'll go on to a second one. Going straight into things, Hamster will continue as Protoss, and Veeq will continue as Terran. Maybe this stuff is actually going to be random. I don't know if it was random versus random or what, you know, what was going on there exactly, but same spawns. Here we go again. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Hamster is indeed going to be rocking the toss, and Veeq is going to be rocking the Fulcrum first once more. I felt like it's just puzzling the way that last game ended. It felt like for sure Veeq could have done more there, so... you know, I'll have to run that one by him and ask him what he thinks. He's usually in the comments of these videos anyway, so you can definitely check that out down below. Or if he's not there, you can just post, "Where is Veeq?" Just do that. Post that. Say, where is Veeq? I don't know where he went. So anyway, we do indeed have another matchup on this map. And yeah, again, I think the lack of being able to actually stand here is probably going to hurt Terrans in particular, trying to attack, trying to defend from somebody attacking into their natural. However, by the same token, like obviously Drakodins get the range bonus as well, and they could potentially isolate everything on that side, right? So like if the Terran was trying to come in, slink on in, then and like the Protoss was here, then they would take pot shots on the way. Maybe it would be too oppressive in that sense, right? We do have double Mason rallied over here, as well as one of the Masons going across the map, so that's probably a mistake, but I guess it'll defend, it'll body block, it'll linebacker this scribe out of here. Get out of here, dude. And here's another one. I don't know. I think maybe Veeq is scared of losing another worker to this man, to this rodent. A lattice first for Hamster. He's going to be doing a little bit more experimental things. This should make Veeq feel super happy, because when you go Fulcrum first and your opponent goes lattice, they cannot withstand the Vulture, let alone the Goliath. At some point, they might have like high unit counts or something, but they can't stop the Goliath, right? They can't stop the Vulture. It's going to be a vassal first, so they definitely can't stop the Vulture. And here's a pylon in your base. This might just be there to, like, hey, say, Hamster, I'm worried about you counterattacking me, so here's a pylon, not just to keep watch, but for you to be distracted by. But if there's no scribe, there's no threat. It's just kind of spying on you. Here comes a watchdog. Oh, Veeq, no, go across the map. Use your Vulture. Go across the map, dude. It's a vassal. You could just go kill infinity scribes with this Vulture. Oh, Veeq. Oh, God, he actually fell for the hamster bait. No, Veeq, no. If you wanted to kill it that bad, just use like one Mason or something. Oh, no, there's so many scribes that could have died. Your Mason didn't even scout anything other than vassals. The vassals came across the map, and even if they didn't, you can just kill them. You can just go across the map and kill them. What are you doing, goofball? Oh, Veeq. Goober Veeq. Goober moment. We've got a Nexus after the lattice. It made two vassals. This motherfucker, this rodent, this hamster man made two vassals versus a Fulcrum opener. The guy went Vulture, and he didn't kill Infinity Scribes somehow. Like, I don't know what I'm seeing. I don't know what I'm witnessing. There's a Golem coming. That's also not going to be too useful, because you can kite it with all the ranged units that Veeq has. But if he never goes across the map, then it won't matter. There is also a Goliath out on the field. It looks like it will be a Ministry. He's going to try to build it on location, which is a little risky versus vassals, because you have to kind of dedicate a guide or whatever, right? But, well, the vassal does slink on away, and the units will finally move across the map, but there's already a Warden halfway done, a second lattice coming, a Golem here just to stall things out. That Warden will probably finish as the rest of the mech units arrive. Obviously, the Vulture can get there faster, but... what is Veeq going to do? Is he just going to try to commit to killing the Warden? I mean, he could, but here comes the Golem. Yeah, so unfortunately, the I think he waited a little bit too long here for the attack. Now he's going to be zoned away. Lattice is making another Golem. Another Warden coming. I mean, this is still a potential. I mean, unfortunately... Wait, did the Vassal actually do... Oh my god, the Vassal did it. Vassal moment right there. Now, he is going to have to force a cancel on that, and the Golem is nearly dead. He should not be taking any damage from the Golem. And there it goes. Now you need to commit. You got your other Cyclops coming. The Goliath is about a quarter of the way done. And, oh no! I wasn't watching. Well, he kills a Warden for it. So it's actually a pretty good trade, all things considered. But yeah, at this point, Veeq is floating a million resources. He needs to add some more Fulcrums, which it looks like he's doing. My Warden! ... Yeah, it's true. And did the Golem die? No, the Golem's up here. Okay. Like, Veeq is going to look at this game and probably kick himself like, dude, holy shit, I could have done so much more damage. This guy had nothing. He went double lattice versus a Terran player who went Fulcrum first. Like, this guy should just die. And I agree. But unfortunately, Veeq is now going to get overwhelmed by Golems. Dude, they look pretty funny, don't they? This should make Mystery Meat happy seeing this. Makes me happy seeing that. Here comes a Vulture. And Goliath also, for some reason, falling back. Some mines are going to be laid. One of the Golems will get stunned by it. It's a Golem-only challenge run. I did play a game against It Depends yesterday, and I literally won by building only Hurricanes. Not even, like, Trojans. I built no other units, aside from Masons, obviously. Masons and Hurricanes, it was my challenge run. These Golems are getting bopped. They'll slink away. There's no defenses back at home. So maybe they can do some pressure, but they're relieving pressure, and now there's a horde of manifolds sort of descending upon the field. I can't believe Hamster has been allowed to get away with this, honestly. This, you know, if people think Protoss is OP and then this is what they do against him, it all makes sense. No, I'm just playing around. But, yeah, Veeq is realizing at some point, like, holy shit, I have to spend my money. By the way, Veeq submitted these replays. So, just so you guys know who's responsible for getting me to cast these. The other thing to mention here is that with the amount of money float, I guess from both players, really, I'm wondering what the next thing is going to be. It's more lattices. It's his lattice challenge run, I guess. Now, at this point, right, Veeq has decided, all right, you're going to make golems, huh? Well, I'm going to make Goliaths to deal with those golems. The problem is, right, there's no more Goliaths. It's all, well, okay, there is actually one golem. And the minefield could have been laid a little bit earlier to fall back to, but it was laid post-hoc. And uh-oh, Hamster, watch out. Don't walk right into that. Oh, the golem did. The golem will die. No more front line. Now, admittedly, Veeq has done a pretty good job of falling backwards, right, on the attack. This vulture had 2 mines and could have laid those, but unfortunately did not. Even just laying them backwards is still fine. Like, if you have to fall all the way back, that's a thing. More Goliaths have arrived. I feel like Veeq can get together a pretty good push. The problem is he has no sustain, and he's not ever tapping back to his base to stock, you know, add more workers or anything. Now he's starting to lay the mines a little bit more aggressively, and I don't think we have an embassy coming. Oh, we do. It's almost done, actually. So there is that at the very least for Hamster. Yeah, definitely something that I'm acutely aware of at this point is that, yeah, Veeq has an overwhelming number of forces and should absolutely just be able to attack move. He's actually focusing on the Warden, which I think is a bit of a mistake, and should instead be focusing on the Manifolds. The Manifolds deal the most amount of damage. More Golems are over here, but he can focus them down as well. Now, some of his Goliaths are pretty low, including the one on the front there, which is a little bit of an awkward situation. Warden will get 1 shot off and almost pick off that Goliath. 1 more shot would have done it. But now the Scribes are starting to get involved, which is usually a sign of desperation for the Protoss player. At least with this quantity of units, we got more streaming in. 2 more Goliaths have arrived, and that's probably going to seal the deal. I can't really imagine Hamster coming back from this situation. At the end of the day, he will be punished for his antics, but at what cost to my sanity? Hey, at least it's a learning experience, right? So in the case of the situation, Veeq can look back at this and say, well, I'm playing as Protoss, but if a Terran goes Fulcrum first, you know, or maybe in general as a player, I should never go Lattice first, and you know, maybe this will save him some games as he's, you know, playing through. There's going to be a lot of Terran players that are playing in that match, so in the gauntlet. So with the Nexus gone, and now a bit of a force established here, you know, we could be going for Cyclops for the crowd control, but honestly, with the way that the Vulture hits have happened, the Goliaths are also just totally fine, right? Like, they can pursue. They are absolutely wrecking house over here. And GG has to be called. Hamster will go down, and Veeq is on the board on his own map. Protoss not actually OP overall. I just know that when I say stuff like that, there are a million mystery meats crying out for justice. Let's see what happens in the third matchup here. We actually have Veeq as Zerg and Hamster as Protoss. Hamster, the bedazzled blue, Protoss in the top right. And is this pizza? It's Sunglow. Love that. That's basically pizza, by the way. Sunglow Zerg in the top left. For some reason, right, Mesk says that this color is eye-straining to him. And, you know, he's the guy with, like, the color-accurate displays and tries to, like, make sure that everything is super good. I don't know that my monitor is not color-accurate. Like, it seems fairly solid, fairly standard. And it doesn't strain my eyes. So maybe we just have different eyeballs. Maybe that explains it. Go for a sip right about now. And aside from that, I mean, when the early Vespene kind of signals to me that Veeq might be thinking about doing Hydrith Opener. We also obviously have the Scribe going across the map. Pylon fairly safe. Sorry about that. We had a monkey screech in the background I had to tend to. So we do have a gateway coming. And speaking of monkey screeches, I suppose this is the Hydrith Opener. There it is! Versus Protoss. You go Hydras. That's what Veeq thinks. You know, I don't necessarily mind that idea. The problem is, your units cost more resources out of the Hydrith Den. And I feel like maybe the economics of the early game mean that kind of delays your hatch, you know, either in base or expand. And it looks like actually Veeq does want to expand as opposed to that. So it's like with a Quaz first into hatch, it I feel like it makes some functional sense, but here he's cutting workers, he's delaying it, he's not cutting workers, so he's further delaying it, you know what I mean? Like, now he's burrowed his worker, and the scribe's like, I don't understand. There was supposed to be a worker there. Just sort of puzzling. Oh, the Hydra Stand is, of course, nearly complete, so we'll get to see what Veeq's first course of action with it is. But yeah, this feels like a very off-the-cuff build order that maybe he hasn't practiced too much. You can see here he's actually triple stacked one of his minerals, which is not necessarily super splendid, considering the situation. A Zealot is now charging across the map man mode style, and we do have 2 Hydras on the way, so that will be sufficient to deal with it. If there's a little bit of micro involved, the worker has now burrowed in a corner and will try to spy on what Hamster is doing. Hydra hold positioning on the high ground, Hydra, but it's called Cosmonic Brood War now. A joke only the old heads will get. First couple shots go onto the Zealot, and now it's already out of shield, so a little bit of micro will go a long way over here, and the Zealot is not very long for this world. So Hamster probably should have just continued onward to see the worker count. I don't know what I was doing there with the camera. And try to go for some understanding of, you know, what his opponent is doing in that respect. The worker has been stepped on. Absolutely bopped. And but at least he confirms that the Draconin is still at home, right? So he can be a little bit more forward with his Hydras. And he's actually making many of them and keeping most of his workers off to the side here. And there's a macro hatch for the man himself, and a second gateway coming in for Hamster. Just going to continue to station some units here. I do feel like maybe 6 Hydras or so could absolutely do some pretty good damage, even in the early stages of the game. And Hamster is crucially moving his units across the map. To me, I look at that and I think to myself, like, oh, damn, like these Hydras are actually going to be super useful in that context. They can absolutely overwhelm the Dracoidins, especially if they just march on in here through the trap. Although the way that they're pathing right now, I think they will reveal the Hydras, and Veeq may lose the first set of units. He's also been drolling up a little bit here. So, oh, they weren't attack moving. Okay, so he's going to lose a worker. He's probably going to lose 2 workers here. There it is. Maybe 3. He burrows that one, but you can obviously just step on it. So, yeah, that's actually a much more costly loss. But if I'm Veeq in this situation and my opponent just sent in a couple of Dracoidins and probably doesn't have a large amount of production, this is the go signal for me. This is the build more Hydras signal for me. I've got 3 hatch. I've got pretty reasonable mining over here with 15 workers on minerals. I'm just going to straight up go in attack. Like, that's the all-in signal almost, you know? A switch flips and you realize, dude, you just suicided your 2 Dracoidins. So once again, kind of like that second game where Veeq played as Terran and did the Fulcrum first, but then didn't punish with his early units. He has some hesitance towards moving out. And I wonder if maybe, you know, I don't know that I saw that hesitance when he played as Protoss, so these games might just be a little bit older, and you know, he's just still figuring that sort of thing out. But I would absolutely say, dude, at this point, the Protoss player is super vulnerable. They can absolutely just be bopped. And, you know, I would definitely go across the map with, I wouldn't have been making as many workers to begin with, but because I already would have been thinking, dude, you sent your first Zealot across, and you probably don't have that much production, and I know your 2 Dracoidins are there, or your 1 Dracoidin is there with my worker. So, you know, I have all the information necessary to think I'm going to start making like 6, 7 Hydras, move them across the map, maybe go for reinforcements as well, like 1 round of reinforcements before workers, and then depending on how well my initial assault goes, that's the go signal for, you know, do I continue to attack and press the attack and just finish the game, or do I stabilize and say, okay, now it's time for workers? Now, at the same time, there's 3 more Dracoidins coming across the map. A worker does die going for a 3rd. Dude, this is so free if Veeq just moves across the map at this point. His opponent doesn't have workers in the base. I've got a Circuith here. Like, if I'm trying to project myself into Veeq's position, I have a Circuith here. I've got production, you know, off of 3 hatch. I'm getting a Zork's Shred. Okay, that's a thing. But bro, like, I can absolutely just drop another hatch, drop a bunch of Hydras, charge across the map. If he wants to fight me, then I'll just kill him. You know, like, this is not a difficult computation for me. So at this point, the pressure is on. So far, a couple Dracoidins have died. Not great focus fire out of Hamster, and for some reason they're tasked onto the farthest available Dracoidin there. But yeah, they've already forced out, you know, two Dracoidins are dead. But no, again, Veeq is pulling back. He wants to, you know, secure his 3rd base. He doesn't necessarily feel like he can attack his opponent. And this is allowing Hamster to get up to 3 bases. He doesn't have the worker advantage, but he's adding a 3rd gate. And yeah, I mean, like, I think if you're Protoss and you go for an embassy earlier than is absolutely necessary, particularly with only 2 gates and a third one on the way. Like, not great production, not a great amount of military victories so far. Like, you haven't managed the opponent's worker count. Like, this is still a valid way for Veeq to play insofar as he is getting a lot of bases. But yeah, now the witness is coming, right? So I think Veeq has realized, like, holy shit, wait. He's coming across. So he's going to try to fight around the Hatteras. Particularly, this is going to be good for dealing with the Zealots. But is it actually going to be good for that? Because he kind of split his force onto one of the Zealots and one of the Drakidans. And he doesn't have that many combat units, right? He didn't actually make that many. Now I'm adding some Zoryas to the mix, but that's all of his minerals because he hasn't, like, divvied out his control groups, it looks like. And he's going to maybe have to cancel. Like, I don't think he should cancel this. He should let it finish and then just defend it. But it's still a lot, right? Like, I feel like he's definitely, you know, overzealously macroed as opposed to thinking about, like, okay, how can I just kill my opponent, right? Because Hamster is still very, very weak. Like, all of the move-outs that Hamster has done so far have, in my opinion, been really ill-fated and also just ill-advised. Like, it's not good game theory from a strategic standpoint. Like, why would you move out versus a Zerg in these sorts of times? The first Zealot, okay, that's whatever. But the 2 Drakidans afterwards, that's super, super scary. Especially when he's gone Hydrith first. Like, it's not even like the Drakidans can kite, right? They can't. So we do have double Warden coming, but they only just dropped, so another 20 seconds or so before those are up and running. And the Zoryas are going to start to stack up a lot of the Rilla Road Cores, right? When they take damage, they spawn a Rilla Road Core after a certain amount of time. First Warden is going to go down, not canceled. We do have an audio-visual read for that, so it's pretty easy to tell when it's canceled. That one was also not canceled. Hamster floating 1,000 minerals anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. And now, unfortunately for Veeq, his forces are kind of getting split up a little bit. He wants to consolidate his power. Warden in the back line is going to be a little bit hard for the Zoryas to get to, but they're busy focusing on the Drakidans anyway at this point. Spawning additional Rilla Road Cores. You know, their durability is off the charts here, and it looks like the Drakidans are getting forced back. Only 2 of them left with any sorts of health. Make that 1. And yeah, the other one up here is very, very low as well. The Warden falling. This is going to be a pretty good move here for Hamster to end up dropping this match because Veeq is finally sending his units across the map. But again, man, I don't mean to sound overly harsh, but absolutely Veeq could have done this at like 5 minutes into the game. Like, Hamster was super, super risk-taking with this set. So, all right, we've got Hamster down 1-2 with the first couple sets of games. And that, to me, is just about as good as anything for the video. So we'll be joining us back for the subsequent final 2 matches in the set some point later on this week. But I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing Veeq in action with some random, Hamster in action with some Protoss, or maybe some random that rolled with Protoss. You know, we're all familiar with that after the grand finals of Ascension 6. And yeah, hopefully Veeq is able to tighten up his play in the future, but he still took 2 dubs over Hamster as Terran and as Zerg. So showing a little bit of familiarity with the project as he gets back into the swing of things. So will you be the one to challenge Veeq next? Or are you going to challenge Hamster next? I mean, listen, bro, anybody can do it as far as actually, you know, playing the game. It doesn't take that much. It doesn't take a telepath to install this game and get it running. So hop in. The water's fine.